He got a trainer off to the side, and the trainer threw him footballs over and over and over and over again until it was time for him to go back out on the field. He was obsessed, and he made absolute use of his downtime at practice. He wasn't on a knee BSing, playing grab ass, or, aimlessly not paying attention, doing something else. He was of the mindset that practice was the time for me to get better. Watching and listening to the Indy Drills podcast. I'm your host, Chad Wilson, owner of All Eyes DB Camp and author of 101 DB Tips, the ultimate defensive back reference guide. If you're watching me on YouTube, you can check out 101 DB Tips and even probably pick up a copy of your own, because it is the book that I recommend every DB coach and player and trainer have. You can hit the link in the description down below. For my listening audience on the streams for the podcast, 101dbtips.com. Go check it out. If this is your first time here, what do we do on this show? We talk about defensive backs coverage, linebackers in coverage. We're talking about stopping the offensive passing attack, ways to do that, whether that's from a mental aspect, physical aspect, whatever the case may be. Happy to have you guys here with me as we are just chugging along. The NFL Combine just went by, and so I'm going to need to get on my soapbox. I will be doing that in this edition. We'll also be talking about time management, something that is very, very important, both in the offseason and the in-season. But since we're in the offseason, I will talk about the off-season part of that. Got a coach that wants to know how to get guys how to communicate, get them to communicate in their zone coverages. We'll talk about that. And then also development for young defensive backs. That is something that comes up every year around this time. I will be giving some helpful hints on that for any parents or even young defensive backs that find themselves listening to this. There are some do's and don'ts to that. So quite a bit to get to. But like I said, the NFL Combine just came by, and hey, listen, no one has loved the NFL Combine more than me through the years. And I am certainly a guy who has followed 40-yard dash times. Hell, I probably have the most visited 40-yard dash article published on the internet every year around this time. Thousands and thousands of hits, because I have kept a long list and a table of the top 40 times that have ever been run. And you can find that when you go to gridironstuds.com/blog. I think I will move that to the top of the blog right there for you guys to check out. But the title of the article, if you're looking for it on Google, is the fastest 40-yard dash ever. Started as a labor of love, something that I wrote over 10 years ago, and I've just continued to add on to it. And by the way, there are going to be some new additions to that list after this NFL Combine. And you know what? We're going to continue to have additions to this. Listen, this is part of what I'm talking about. Every year around this time, there are guys that are going to go out there to the NFL Combine and run their super fast 40-yard dash times. And there's going to be a tremendous amount of hype centered around that. And people are going to want to escalate guys, move guys to places maybe where they don't belong simply because of a 40 time, because we have gotten to the point where we've put too much emphasis on that 40. Now, some of what I'm going to say might sound counter to things that I've talked about in the past on this show and in my articles and in my members areas and all of the places where you guys visit. I'm a very big proponent and advocate of track being run by defensive backs. I highly, highly recommend that for young guys in the youth ages. Definitely recommend it for guys in the high school ages, because speed kills. Speed is a thing. Speed is not everything, though. And around this time of year, we tend to make it all that. The guys at the facilities that are training these guys want to make it all about the 40-yard dash. And then the media personnel want to make it all about the 40-yard dash. I would like to think, and just in my talking to defensive back coaches out there that are both at the college and NFL level, it's not all about that for them. So it's very easy for guys to get caught up in the hype. And, part of this is just agents and people behind these players trying to jockey guys for position. And when you have a very solid number on a page that was also run in front of a audience, which is now what the combine was. The combine used to be a very secret thing, and no one really knew what went on at the combine. There are legendary stories out there. Deion Sanders running the 40-yard dash through the line and out into a limo is one of the legendary stories there. But there was no real footage of these things. Okay. There was just what the stories were, and then 40 times were secret. And in some, entertainment genius out there, someone in the NFL decided to make this a primetime show. And the NFL has done very good in marketing their product. If you guys don't realize that, now that we have football games on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, in addition to Monday, also on New Year's, Thanksgiving, we're getting them on Christmas Day. We're getting them on Black Friday. Like, they've dominated in that area. And they have decided that the combine should be a made-for-TV event. So, and the biggest thing that you're going to have at the combine is that 40-yard dash. I can understand why it has become hyped. And then I can understand why, because it is out there in the media, and this is all that people talk about during the combine and immediately after, why a lot of people feel like this is just the end-all and be-all of all the positions. And since we're talking about defensive back, this is what people are trying to make it. It's not about running the fastest 40-yard dash time. If you end up running the fastest 40-yard dash time, but you have a complete game as a DB, well, then you probably are a guy that's a future Hall of Famer. But that's usually not how this thing works out. Now, I get everyone wants to be Deion Sanders, man, but there's only one Deion Sanders. There's only one Bo Jackson. There's only one Randy Moss. There's only one Michael Jordan, okay? There are guys that are going to come along and that will mimic these qualities, and maybe there will be another one because, you never know. You can never tell. But if you're out there trying to mimic a Deion Sanders just from the 40-yard dash standpoint, to the exclusion of everything else in your game, you're going to have a crash landing, all right? And guys are going to facilities and they're training, and everything is about the 40 and everything else is getting neglected, like your on-field drill work. I'm going to tell you this as a guy that's been training, coaching, playing, doing this whole defensive back thing for over 20 years now. You got to be a complete defensive back. You've got to be a complete football player. And it's tough to get some of the guys that are training these guys to understand that. It's very difficult. They get measured, they feel like, by those 40-yard dash times. And anything that gets in the way of getting that number to the lowest possible thing that it can be, they're going to view as a threat. So if it was left to them, the only thing they would do is train for the 40s. You guys go home, sit down, kick your legs up, and you're just not going to do much of anything. If it was totally left to them, I think they would do that. Now, they do understand that, there needs to be some defensive back work. There needs to be some, field and position work. And I'm not talking about all facilities, but a lot of facilities feel this way. And a lot of guys training might feel this way. And so they feel like something should be done, or this just wouldn't look right. And I feel like that's the only reason why they do the field work. And I get it. Your business is basically running off of this 40-yard dash time. But I'm here to tell you it's really not. It's really run off of how complete of a player comes out of your facility. Can he do that bench press? Can he run that 40-yard dash? Can he look like a football player when he goes through the drills? Because it leaves a really bad impression on a coach when a player goes out, runs super fast, and the speed doesn't necessarily align with the production that the player had while he was in college. He was a starter for 2 years, 3 years, doesn't have very many interceptions, doesn't have very many pass breakups, just doesn't show up on film. But when he went to Indianapolis, or he was at his pro day and he ran out of a 3-point stance in T-shirts and a short with his head down for 25, 30 yards, he looked really, really great. After you guys run these 40-yard dashes, you will never again in your football career run 25 yards with your head down, looking at the ground as a football player. It will never happen in a game, not unless you want to go get put to sleep. because someone's going to look you up and cold cock you as you're looking to that ground. As defensive backs, we don't look at the ground. The ground has zero stats. I tell this to my guys all the time. The ground doesn't throw a pass. The ground does not catch a pass. We don't look at the ground. So after you run this 40-yard dash, you will never again be looking at the ground in the manner in which you are looking at the ground when you run that 40-yard dash. Now, again, I will say this. The 40-yard dash does matter. Your speed does matter, but it doesn't matter nearly as much as many of guys want to make it. If you don't believe me, I want you guys to go look up, all right? Spend a little time, go research the fastest 40-yard dash times for defensive backs. You could do it. You could do the fastest 40-yard dash times for safeties, fastest 40-yard dash times ever for cornerbacks. Tell me how many guys on there you recognize. How many guys on there you think will be that were all pros? How many of those guys do you think were Pro Bowlers? Tell you what. Tell me right now, without looking it up, what was Darrelle Revis's 40-yard dash time? It was good, by the way, but do you know it? So it's about you being a complete football player. And so when I tell young guys, go run track, I'm not telling you to get speed at the exclusion of your training to be a good defensive back. You don't exclude everything else to go run the fastest time possible. You try to run the fastest time possible while working on the other parts of your game. And so sometimes working on the other parts of your game may exclude you from running an Olympic time 40-yard dash. Maybe if you did nothing, you might run a 4.3 flat. But in order for you to both look and be the part, you end up running a 4.35 or 4.36, 4.37 40. That means you're not a good football player. That means you slide a few rounds. I don't think so. And you know who really understands this? Good NFL football teams. So if you've sacrificed a couple hundredths off your time and certain teams feel like that needs to drop you several rounds, then that's really not the team that you want to play for. The guys that you see in those playoffs every year, that seemingly are always in that championship game or playing in the Super Bowl, they understand what I'm talking about. They get it. And those are the teams that you want to play for. The foolish teams, where they get caught up in all of the media hype and they let their sons or whoever tell them who has the best Manning ratings or what the fantasy football says. Those teams tend to not be the most successful in both the whole drafting and just accomplishing thing. They tend to be at the bottom of the barrel. They tend to be at the bottom of the divisions. They tend to be home when January comes in the NFL. The other teams tend to put together good talent on the football field because they understand the whole evaluation thing. And they understand that at the end of the day, we are playing football. This is not the Olympics. Be fast, but you cannot exclude all of the other aspects of your game in a quest for the lowest and the fastest 40-yard dash time ever. So I want you guys to think about that as you go through all of the hype that's going to be on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and everywhere else about a guy's 40-yard dash time. There is tape of them playing football. And if they don't play it well, there is nothing in those 3 digits in that 40-yard dash time that is going to really undo that. Can you play football? Can you backpedal? Can you turn out of your backpedal? Can you recognize a route? Can you play press man? Do you understand where you belong in the defense? Are you a complete defensive back? Can you tackle a guy in the open field? These are things that matter, and they all matter. And if you can't do them well, it's not going to matter. All right? It's just not going to matter. When I was with the Seattle Seahawks in camp, the guy that I was rooming with was a 4.2 something 40, 4.2 40 guy. He was gone out of that room within 2 weeks. Right? I had no roommate within 2 weeks. Fast as all hell, just wasn't a complete football player. Couldn't do all the defensive back stuff. That's my soapbox. So I'm going to climb down off the soapbox. Okay, you're running track to gain speed, not to be in the Olympics. And so, no offense to anyone who ran really, really fast in the 40. No offense to anyone who's on that list. Notice I didn't give you guys the name on that list. I'm not here to do that to anybody. I mean, anyone who got that far deserves something. If you were considered in the NFL, or if you were even drafted or played a couple seasons in the NFL, you did more than I did. So I'm not taking away from that. I'm just pointing out that the fastest 40-yard dash times don't equate to what people think they're going to equate to. So I want you guys to see through the hype as you go through these next few weeks. You need to be a complete defensive back. All right. Speaking of being a complete defensive back, we're going to talk a little bit about time management today, because that is a very, very big thing. And it's super important during the season as time tends to run low. And there's the pressure of a game on every Friday or Saturday or Sunday, depending on, what level that you play at. And the best time and place to learn the time management is in the off season. The same way you're building up your muscles and your speed and your skill and all of that stuff in the off season, it is really good for you in this off season to develop some time management skills that you're just going to go transfer into the regular season to make yourself better. The other thing is, there's a lot of free time in your off season, and you need to manage that as well, because a lot of free time tends to turn into wasted time. So those are things for us to talk about. But let me just start off with, so far as practice is concerned. As you guys are getting ready to move into spring ball, this is for both coaches and players. The best thing you could do to take advantage of your time is do something before the actual practice or the sessions, and that's your pre-practice setup. Have an idea of what it is exactly you want to do. So for you coaches out there, and this might be common sense for some coaches, and maybe not so much common sense for others. I totally get that.
If you're a brand new coach and you've been thrusted into a job and you're kind of overwhelmed, I've got a great resource for you. The All Eyes DB Camp members area will get you up to speed so you can get your guys in the right position to make plays and make you look like an all-star coach. I've got everything in there, from quizzes, coverages explained, technique breakdowns, strategy sessions, everything you need to ramp up your coaching ability and turn your guys into playmakers. Hit the link down below. Come join us in the All Eyes DB Camp members area. Greatness awaits you.
Everyone's at different levels and experience in their coaching journey and their playing journey and whatever the case may be. But I'm here to tell you, as my experience as a coach, the more time you take organizing and setting up your practice, and what do you want to do in each period, how long are those periods going to be, how you are going to signal for the end of those periods, whether it's, an air horn or a whistle or whatever the case may be. Set up a practice schedule and adhere to it. And if you have not gotten everything that you want to get done in that amount of time, that's it. Hit the horn, blow the whistle, you're on to the next thing, and then you reevaluate at the end of the practice the reasons why you did not accomplish everything you wanted to accomplish in that period. For the players, you need to do the same. Your coaches are setting up these periods. Start thinking in your mind what it is you want to accomplish in all of these periods. Now, do you always know what the periods are going to be going into practice? I mean, some places you do, some places you don't. But you should at least have an outline going into your practice, some of the things that you want to accomplish, all right? And it's good to go into the practice with a plan. The same way you go into a game with a game plan is the same way you want to go into the practice. Practice is about achieving in the game, so you got to practice these things in practice. And a lot of players just take the practice for granted. And understood, you just run out there and you just run around and practice is kind of what you've always done. When you're a kid, all these things were just told to you. And if you were never taught to do this, it's just never been a part of what you do. However, I'm telling you this now, as you move into a little bit more maturity, you as a player, individual player, have a practice plan going into practice. All right. What is it that I want to accomplish? Whether that's 3 things or 5 things, have those things laid out before practice and when you would like to accomplish it. What if you guys have standard periods that you do, there's an individual period, there's a walkthrough period, there's a 7-on-7, there's a team, even special teams. You should have an idea of what you want to accomplish. Just think of one thing you want to accomplish or improve upon in each one of those periods. That's what I'm calling pre-practice setup. So for our coaches, let's make sure you have those periods set up. How much time do you want to devote to this and adhere to it? If for nothing else, it gives your team discipline, and discipline wins on game day. Just by the way you set up practice, you can make a disciplined player. Now, you can get up there in the meeting room, or you can get up in there, after a practice, and you can browbeat guys about they need discipline, or you could just say, we're going to run the discipline into you, or, run the lack of discipline out of you. And that may or may not work, tends not to, especially with this, new era of player that's out there. However, by setting up a practice that's regimented, for lack of a better term, and it runs on a strict schedule, you will develop, just by osmosis, guys that are disciplined, guys that understand this is how certain things work. We are organized. This is like at this time. This is at that time. We don't do this, but we do this. And you build a disciplined player, a disciplined team, and you'll see just the results. It's one of those tangible things that just end up happening. So you got to have a pre-practice setup. For the players out there, make use of your practice downtime. One of the stories that I always tell guys is I had the pleasure, and if you're a young guy, just try to follow along with me here. I'm assuming you're not so young you don't know who Jerry Rice and Deion Sanders are. Whether you know this or not, those two guys played on the same team for 1 year in their career. It was in 1994. They both played on the San Francisco 49ers. They happened to go to the Super Bowl, and they played in the Super Bowl down here in Miami. And it happened to be my senior year at the University of Miami. The 49ers used our practice facility, and after we would leave practice, they would come out there and practice. One day during the week while they were using the practice, a couple of us went up into the coach's office, and we watched their practice from the coach's window. And when I tell you I left, you already had respect for both Deion Sanders and Jerry Rice going into it. Jerry Rice was in his 10th year as an NFL player. So if you could think about how much he had accomplished by that point. He'd already, I think at that point, won 2 Super Bowls, maybe 3 at that point, already been all pro, on his way to crushing a bunch of records. Deion Sanders came into the league in a blast in 1994. I think that was his fifth or sixth season in the league, and he'd already set the league on fire. Very high achievers at the top of their game, probably the best receiver, best DB at that time. What I saw from them in practice was way beyond what I'd ever thought. Jerry Rice would catch his pass in the team period, and granted, they're down close by the end zone. He would catch his pass in the play, and as you can imagine, a lot of the plays were for Jerry Rice. And every time he caught the ball, he ran all the way to the end zone and jogged back for the next rep and lined up and ran. And this was over and over and over. I mean, if they had 6 plays, 3 of those plays were for Jerry Rice, maybe even 4. So that's 4 trips all the way down to the end zone, and you run back and you take your next rep. Didn't miss a rep. And then when the 1s were off the field and the 2s went out there, Jerry Rice did not rest. He got a trainer off to the side, and the trainer threw him footballs over and over and over and over again until it was time for him to go back out on the field. He was obsessed, and he made absolute use of his downtime at practice. He wasn't on a knee, BSing, playing grab ass, or, aimlessly not paying attention, doing something else. He was of the mindset that practice was the time for me to get better. Deion Sanders, not as obsessed. It was hard to be as obsessed as Jerry Rice. However, he sprinted across the field when the play was away from him. When he came off the field, I noticed him still working his footwork and his technique for a little bit while he was waiting to go back out on the field. He didn't need to do that. He was already the top corner in the game, the most notable defensive back playing in the game. He signed a big free agent contract to come to San Francisco. And he, essentially was a big part of why they were even playing in this Super Bowl. Didn't need to do all of that, but he's there doing that. Then they blew the horn for them to go to another period. And the period was they were on one field. We had 4 big football fields. And the next period was on another field across the campus, not across the campus, but one big field over here to the left. The next field they were going to was off to the right. So at least 100-something yards. Jerry Rice and Deion Sanders sprinted there. The 2 best players on the team, the guys who least needed to do this, took off, sprinted, didn't want to waste any time. So I'm saying this to say you guys have a lot of downtime. And what I've noticed in my coaching career, and probably even some in my playing career as well, is guys will misuse that time. Now, it's cool to have camaraderie and all that good stuff with your players, with your teammates. Sure. But there's also a time to work. And man, when you come to practice, if your practice is an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes long, that's an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes out of your day that you can maximize and use to get to be the best that you could possibly be. So when you come off the field, hey, listen, really be watching or paying attention to what's going on in the field, getting the calls, understanding where you're supposed to be, or working on a technique that you're not good at. Your pedal's not good, work on it off to the side. If you're kind of off in your press technique, your steps, whatever, you should be working that while the 2s are on the field or your unit is not on the field. If you're a 2s while the 1s are out there, work that off to the side. All right. If you're a 1 and you come off the field and the 2s are now on the field, work your technique on the side. Or if you're not understanding something defensively, pay attention to it, but use that downtime wisely. Another part of time that guys, especially defensive backs, will waste, even though we're a part of a lot of it, is some special teams. Sometimes you're not on that kickoff team. A lot of times we're not on that kick return team. We're definitely not on the field goal team, and that gets worked a lot. So there's just time there, and you just think, oh, it's a time for me to kick up my feet, BS a little bit. No. Do all of the things that I just told you needed to do when you weren't on the field. Go work your technique. You and another DB go off to the side and you guys work 3 releases. Steal some reps. Steal some time. All right? Steal some time. Because you're not going to work on this when you go home. You got homework to do. You got chores to do. You got other stuff that you want to do. You can do your leisure there. All right? You don't have other times where you're really going to work this, especially during a season. So you should spend that time working on those things. Really maximize that hour and a half, 145. Some of y'all practice 2 hours. Really maximize that time. The last thing I'm going to tell you is, well, not the last thing, but we need to talk about your post-practice compounding. And what is that? I'm going to explain that to you. But before I do that, if you're a guy that's been coming here for a while, or even if you're new and you want information on playing defensive back, information on stuff that we've got going on here at All Eyes DB Camp, and you want a free DB training video, I would highly recommend that you guys join my mailing list. If you're watching this on YouTube, I have a link to it in the description down below. You go, you fill it out, and you will get a free DB training video sent straight to your email inbox within minutes. All right. Probably within a minute, it's going to come to you. And you're also going to receive updates from us, including articles and helpful tips on playing defensive back. So a good idea for you guys that are on my listening audience. It's a little bit of a difficult URL for you guys. We'll try to put it in the description of the show. Otherwise, it's alliesdbcamp.com/free DB training video page. If you guys could follow along with that, write that one down. But just something for you guys that if you want some little helpful tips out there for you. Now, post-practice compounding. Anywhere that I've coached, and we've had great defensive backs, and I've coached some great defensive backs, there was always a post-practice period. The post-practice period would always involve something that, one of two things, either something that you are struggling with or something that we do a whole lot as a secondary that is the core of what we do that just absolutely has to be mastered. When I was at American Heritage and I had Marco Wilson and Tyson Campbell and Patrick Surtain and several other guys that went on to play college football, making full use of those guys' talents. We played a lot of press man, and the safeties and the nickel guys did a lot of catch technique. So they would spend 10 minutes after practice every day, corners working on the press, the inside guys working on their catch technique for 10 minutes. Now, I told them that early, and I didn't supervise it. I left it up to the players because, at the end of the day, that's who's on the field. The coaches are on the sidelines. The players are on the field. You've got to hold each other accountable. And they did that. And when I tell you, it just compounds because you've got to think about it. 10 minutes after practice, 4 times a week. All right. Monday through Thursday. All right. 4 times 10, 40 minutes a week. Your football season, if you're starting in July, all right, that ends up being about 20 weeks, especially if you go to the playoffs. Think about how much time that is. Think of 40 minutes times 20. What are we talking about here? That's 800 minutes, all right? 800 minutes, and you figure, let's give you that in hours. That's 14 extra hours that you're getting at a specific skill. Think about that. How much better are you going to be at something if you spend 14 extra hours doing it? Whether that's video games or learning how to do something on social media or, something in a class, whatever the case may be. Learning a foreign language, whatever the case may be. How much better are you going to be if you put in 14 extra hours at it? Now think about that with your defensive back skill. And again, it could be one of two things, something you're struggling with or something that your team just does so much of that it's in your best interest to be really, really good at that. And that 10 minutes after practice just compounds. You get good at it today. You're going to get better at it tomorrow. You're going to get better than that better the next day, and so on and so forth. And you just keep building on it. And there are going to be times perhaps where it feels like it's boring. I keep doing the same thing every day, but that's when you're really getting good at it. When it starts feeling boring to you, that's when you're getting really, really good at it. Because football is a fast-moving game, especially for cornerbacks that are lined up right in front of a wide receiver who's a yard or two away from you. It's a fast-moving game. The less things you have to think about while you're in that situation, the better off you are going to be. But if you don't practice something enough, you are going to have a lot of stuff cluttered in your mind. What are my eyes doing? What are my hands doing? What do I do with my feet? Then what route is this guy running? What down and distance is it? What's the coverage? Where's my help? What's my leverage? The more you practice, those more things you can cut off that list of stuff you have to think about. Because if you do it enough, it just becomes automatic. All right? It just becomes automatic. So that's where the compounding comes in. And once you're done with all that, the final thing that I would say in making the most use of your time now is studying for the next test. What's the next test? The next test could be the game, but before the game, it's the next practice. So if you're fortunate to be in a place where they film practice, and that's in most places, spend some time watching the practice. Watch yourself in the practice. Again, that could be 15 minutes if that's all the time that you have, but make it a daily thing. Watch yourself at practice. Watch what you guys are doing as a unit in practice. And now you get yourself prepared for the next day. So now when you go do your pre-practice planning, you're armed with all of the information that you got out of watching the practice the day before. Now you can make a better pre-practice plan, which leads to a better performance in each one of those practice periods, which now just compounds into you making better use of your time post-practice, because now you're truly aware of what it is you need to work on and how you're going to get better at it. One thing leads to another. So in closing, you want to have pre-practice prep. Organize each practice. Make that part of what you do. The better you organize the practice, the more efficient you're going to be with your time during the practice, both coaches and players. The next thing you want to do is make better use of your practice downtime. And for coaches, you as well. Sometimes you guys kick back when the field goal unit is out there going through their thing. Grab your guys. Grab your unit, because none of them are going to be on the field goal team. Grab your unit and just go over something. Go over something that they need to do, a technique, whatever. Have a little period for your guys, a period within that period where you work with your guys. Some of the best places that I've been have been able to do that. And if your coach isn't doing it as a player, take it upon yourself. Because again, you guys are the ones out on the field. The next thing is the post-practice compounding. Can't say enough about that. 10, 15 minutes, even if it's just 5 minutes on a given day, that stuff compounds, gets better. It's kind of like just putting money in an investment account that just keeps compounding and compounding and compounding. When you look at it at the end of the year, you made yourself some pretty good money, or you're just so much better as a player at this specific skill. And you'll be surprised how it pops up in a championship game, in a playoff game, you just being so good at this skill you've been working on, and it helps you make a play in a key moment. All right. Because that's all it comes down to once you get into that postseason is key moments. And the last thing is just study for the next test. All right. We're studying for the next game. But before that, we're studying for the next practice, because the practice is what's going to make you better for that game. Okay. Practice is hard so that the game is easy. And I hope you guys got that. All right. Time now for the user question, sponsored by one of the great financial apps out there. It's Acorns. I've been talking to you guys about this for the last month now. Acorns is simply a very simple financial app that can be used by my young audience. I'm speaking specifically to you guys, but I'm also speaking to the moms and dads and coaches out there. This is a great way for you to, if you haven't already, introduce yourself to investing, or just saving something beyond the 0.005% that you get out of your savings account. In a nutshell, what Acorns does is once you go in, you set up your account, and you pick what type of investing, strategy you want to have, whether that's aggressive, moderate, or, even just something like a beginner where you're just not as aggressive. All that happens now is the Acorns will round up the transactions in your bank account. So if you're using a debit account or a debit card or something like that, and you make a charge for $12.50, the last 50 cents that would make it $13, Acorns would take and put in your account, and just keep taking a piece of each transaction. This is how the banks get wealthy off of you. They charge you a little piece of each transaction, and they get wealthy off of your transactions. Well, you're going to pay yourself. So a piece of each transaction is going into your Acorns account. Don't worry. It's not so much that you start bouncing checks. It's not like that. It's just a piece here and there, and it's going into an account that's going to give you a pretty decent return. Obviously, can't guarantee any returns, but it's going to be more than the 1% that a bank account gives you. Okay. Over the long term of the stock market, you're talking about probably 9%, whatever. But either way, you are paying yourself and throwing, your small change in there. Outside of that, you can make contributions yourself on a monthly basis. You can make an automatic deposit to your Acorns account once you've set it up, whether that's $50, $100, $500. If you're a big baller, $1,000 a month, whatever the case may be. For my older folks out here, even for my younger folks, you can set up a Roth IRA, all of that great stuff. And a lot of it is stuff you're just not seeing. So I'm so excited about this. And I'm so, I opened up my Acorns account and, kind of begrudgingly like, what is this? But I gave it a try, and man, I can't tell you just how happy I have been with that. Just set it, forget it. When you go back and look, there's a lot more money in there than I started off with. So I'm happy to share that with you guys. If you are watching this on YouTube, you hit that link in the description down below. Actually, I will have this link also for my podcasting audience as well. It will be in the description of the show. Hey, a bonus for you, if you hit that link and you set up your account here within the next 3, 4, 5 days, Acorns will just throw a free $5 in. Once you make your deposit, they will throw a free $5 in there with you just to help you get going. You can't beat that, but you're going to have to do it within the next 5 days. You're going to need to get that done. So better, hit that right now. So the user question sponsored by Acorns, you guys hit that link down below. Here's the question. It's from Coach Kramer from Indiana. It says, Coach, I know that communicating is a big key to DBs playing well in zone, but how do I get my DBs to communicate when they don't like to talk? Very good question, Coach Kramer. And it's, like many of the things that I get asked here, I usually tend to pick questions that I know is dealing with issues that a lot of guys have. This is a big problem. It's why a lot of teams fail in zone. It's really just a breakdown in communication. And one of the big things, especially at the high school level, is those kids don't like to talk, especially your corners. Your corners don't like to talk. The best way to get your guys to talk once the ball is snapped is to get them talking before that ball is snapped. And one of the better things that I have done in places that I've been that has been very, very successful is having the corners start talking the moment the offense comes to the line of scrimmage. Okay. The moment they break the huddle, or, people don't huddle anymore, but as they approach the line of scrimmage, you get them talking. What are they communicating? They're communicating what they have to their side of the field, which is very good information, by the way. It sets the alert for everyone. And so what do I mean by that? Offense comes to the field and your corner is to the backside of trips. He says, I got one. That means he's got one eligible receiver to his side of the field. If it's an empty set and he's got two to his side, I've got two. Or he's to the trip side, I've got three. Or they're in a quad set, I've got four. So both corners are communicating what they have to their side. All right. That's information for the linebacker as they're trying to figure some other things out that they can take in that they don't have to worry about. It's good information for the safety to that side, because guys have different experience in terms of in the secondary. Your veteran guy is going to already know that, but maybe you got a new safety there and you got a veteran corner. Just by yelling out what you've got to your side can help that safety out, realize it's trips right. What's the call? Is there a check? All of those good things. So you get your corners talking right now. Safeties are doing the same. The safeties call out the full formation. All right. So you're getting them to understand and play their part there and also have that awareness. So your corner is saying, hey, I've got three to my side. Safety is seeing the entire formation. He's calling out, hey, we've got trips right, or we've got empty, or whatever the case may be. You get those guys to start talking before the snap when everything is still. The ball has not been snapped yet. Because once that ball gets snapped, there's a whole lot of other stuff going on that's going to divert their attention. While things are still and the offense is in their formations, standing still, it's a little easier for those guys to talk. But you've got to demand that from them and get them in the habit of doing it. And one of the best ways to do that, corner call out how many eligibles to their side. Safeties call out the entire formation. So what is it? Is it I? Is it spread? Is it bunch right? Is it empty? Is it trips right? Is it quads left? Whatever the case may be. Safeties call formation. Corners call out the eligibles. Your linebacker coaches there can figure out what you want to do. You can have your linebackers call out where the back is or the depth of the back or whatever ends up being the key. Call out if there's a wing in the backfield because sometimes wings can get lost, okay? They line up as an up back, they're behind the guard or whatever, crouched down. You can have the linebackers call out what's going on in the backfield. So the corners call out what's happening on the edges. Linebackers call out what's happening in the backfield. Safeties call out the entire picture, and they should, since they're the furthest one back, and they have the best look of the offensive formation. So you get these guys talking. If you get them talking before the snap, now they're already in the talk mode. Now, as the ball is snapped, you can start, and you're going to need these guys to start communicating in, out. I got you. I got you here on the inside. All of the whatever the case may be. All right, every defense is different. All right, so. If there's a bracket or a double team that needs to happen, guys can communicate once the ball is snapped. If there's some kind of a banjo that needs to go on, that's actually a pre-snap call. But if you don't want a situation where you only have your DBs talking when a certain thing is happening, all right? Only in a certain formation do they talk. I got stack, or that's not the situation that you want. Because there could be 5-6 plays in a row where that thing that you want them to communicate on is not happening, and they're in the habit of just not talking. So that situation arises. They haven't been talking for the last 5-6 plays, and they just don't communicate that thing that you actually want them to communicate. But if you have them on each and every play talking, it just becomes a habit that now they can't stop talking. All right. Corners are telling you 2-3 to my side. Safety's telling you we've got bunch, we've got spread. Linebackers are calling it all out. And now they're in the habit of talking. So when the ball gets snapped and everything's flowing, it's not so foreign to them. And Coach Kramer, you start doing that, I think you're going to have some success. If you ever go to a college that operates at a high level, that plays really good defense, or you're ever fortunate enough to go to an NFL practice, that's exactly what's happening.
Stop. You know you didn't have all the interceptions that you wanted to have this year. So how are we going to fix that problem? I've got 2 great resources for you. First is my book, 101 DB Tips. chock full of information and tips for you to get your hands on that pigskin. Everything from how to train, how to play man coverage, how to play zone coverage, and a whole lot more. Plus, the All Eyes DB Camp members area breaks down coverages for you, technique, quizzes, all kinds of great things in there that's going to up your knowledge, that's going to get your hands more times on the football this year. Check them out. I have a link in the description down below.
You're going to realize that there is a whole lot of talking going on pre-snap, a lot of information being given out. And so now it's not a big deal for guys to be talking once that ball is snapped. They've already kind of set the scene for what might be coming based on formation and any other little quirks back there, or the depth of the back, or where the wing is located, or the actual formation stacked by the receivers, whatever. They've already kind of set that up. And then now it's easy for them to talk as it's happening. All right. Watch the switch, watch the out route, all that. All right. And so as much talking as you could get them to do pre-snap is what you're going to get post-snap. Now guys are going to communicate better. Guys won't vacate their zones as much. You will get your coverage checks. Hopefully there aren't too many in your coverages and guys can move fast and free. But you will get those coverage checks. All of these things will just start happening. It's going to actually bring a tear to your eye, coach. But get them talking before the snap. That was a pretty easy one. All right. So I appreciate that question from you, Coach Kramer, and all of you guys out there that may be struggling with this. I hope you found that information quite useful. If you have a question that you would like to have read on the next Indy Drills podcast, or a question about defensive back player coverage that you would just like answered, best way to get that done is to comment on this particular show right now. If you're on YouTube, you can hit the comment section down below, ask your question right there, and I read all of the comments. If it's a great question, I'll be read on the next show. Either way, though, I am going to answer it for you. For my listening audience on the podcast streaming, whether that's Apple, Spotify, or Anchor, go ahead and send an email to cwilson@alleyeasdbcamp.com. Really do appreciate those questions from you guys. So you can send that to cwilson@alleyeasdbcamp.com. And I will be more than happy to answer your question there. All right. And again, guys, check out the Acorns app, link in the description down below. Finally, this one is for my young DBs or parents of my young DBs. Again, it's the off season, and every off season I will get an email, I'll get an inbox, or I will get a call from a parent of a young player. 8, 9, 10 years old, 11 years old, something like that, even 12-year-olds that want training for their sons. And I'm all down for a player learning the position and so on and so forth. But I always discourage a parent from doing this. And it's not because I don't want to train their sons. I just think there's a better use of your time. And so I'm going to talk about DB development for players between the ages of 10 and 12. This is the best practices, as we should say, for guys in this age range, something that's going to actually move the needle. And for some, I know this might bounce off the side of your head, or you may be resistant to it. The only thing I can say here is, and this is going to sound like I'm patting myself on the back, but I've had 2 sons go through this whole thing. They both received college football scholarships. They both got drafted into the NFL. Outside of that, I coached youth football for 10 years, coached high school football for another 10 years. I've seen this process duplicated over and over and over, both with players that I coached, players that I saw, players that I coached against, and of course, the 2 kids that were in my own home. This is the best advice that I could give you, and I hope you guys take this. The thing you want them to do at this age is take an interest in the game. All right. Hopefully you've already got that, but true, genuine interest in the game, not something that you force them to do. Introduce them to watching the game. And that might sound crazy for maybe some of my older parents, but the truth of the matter is this younger generation do not watch games as much as your generation did. Why? Because there's a whole lot more distractions. I'm not here to bump on this new generation of kid. Because truth of the matter is, if we grew up in the times that they're growing up in, we'd probably be doing some of the same things. I want you to think back to your time. There weren't very many distractions. Hell, depending on how old you are, you didn't even have cable. There's channels 2, 4, and 7. You had ABC, CBS, NBC, and then a couple of local channels. That's what you had. Then you had cable. All right, maybe a little bit more of a distraction. You didn't have the internet. You definitely didn't have social media. And video games were not that exciting that could be addicted to them like they are now. There are just so many things pulling away from your kids' time, and so they don't watch the game as much. The other thing is they don't have to. They can watch a game whenever they want, and when you can do something whenever you want, you tend to not do it. So I would say while you still have control of your young man, get him interested in watching the games. And when I mean watching the games, not just watching their favorite player or just watching a player's drip, like what cleats they have on or, sleeve or their helmet. Really get your kid to watch the game from a critical eye. And one of the best things, and this might sound crazy as a defensive back coach, when you introduce them to the game from that critical eye, have them focus on offense. Really have them focus on what's going on that offensive side of the ball. How does the offense operate? Look at the routes that those receivers are running. Take an interest in offensive football because this might sound like sacrilege. The game runs off of offense. Defenses win the championships, but the games run off of offense. Okay, we know that the quarterbacks are talked about the most. They're the most important player. They're the highest paid player on the team. All right. And the receivers get a ton of attention as well. And then the running backs. And then we start talking about guys on defense. Offense is what makes football run. It's what makes it popular and all those good things. All right. Travis Kelce plays on offense. Patrick Mahomes is on offense. All right. So take an interest in that side. Yes, you're probably a future defensive player. Take your interest on that offensive side because the more you understand about that side of the ball, the easier playing on defense is going to be. So have them learn what the formations are. Have them pay attention to what the down and distance is. Have them pay attention to the quarterback's drop. Have them pay attention to the wide receiver splits and then the routes that they run. But have them watch football from a critical eye. You don't have to hammer them over the head about it. You sit down as the parent, you watch the game, you have them sit down there next to you for as long as they could stand being in the same room with you. And have them watch the game and then ask them questions and then have them ask you questions, but take an interest in the game from that standpoint, outside of just looking at the colors of the teams or just my favorite player. If they're not playing football yet, start them in playing football. All right. And it does not have to be tackle. This sounds crazy, but it doesn't have to be tackle. A lot of parents feel this pressure to put their kid in tackle football. I was one of those. I did it just because that's what was done. But over the years that I coach, I realized a lot of these kids that start late are just fine. They're just fine. Some of them end up being hungrier. All right. We had a NFL player who would bring his son to our park every year. And he would come into the trailer and we had our table set up where we would sign kids up for tackle football. And he would walk right past us and sign his kid up for flag. And every year we would give him hell because we all knew who he was. He was a Dolphin football player and a pretty good one at that. And he'd walk right past us, sign his kid up for flag. And he kept doing that. And we'd watch him every year, kid getting taller, looking more athletic. He's got calves on him. You know the stuff that you do as coaches when you're trying to get all the best players that you can on your little league team so you can win and shut the team up across town that talks a lot of trash. And he'd walk right past us. Then eventually I want to say the kid got to about 11 years old. Maybe about 11 years old or so. Finally put him in tackle. And it was like he'd been playing since he was 6. No problem. Little bit of time there just adjusting to the tackling, but didn't take long. And he was pretty damn good when he was out there. He was just fine. Not a problem. So it doesn't have to be tackle. If your kid's not playing football yet and he's age 10 through 12, you can introduce him to the game by playing flag. If you're, want to go ahead and put him in tackle, that's fine. And it's okay if your kid starts playing football at that age. I started playing football when I turned 12, made it all the way to the NFL. Played big time college football. And I'm doing all this today. Started when I was 11 turning 12. Now my kids started younger. They started at 5 and 6. Hell, they were tearing up the house, man, and they needed to do something. And it was football season, took them out there to play football. They literally needed something to do. I'd like to say I was probably a more quiet kid. Those two boys were driving me crazy and they needed to get that energy off. So we took them out, signed them up for tackle football. I was a little naive back then. In hindsight, I probably would have waited. Um, Despite how it turned out for the both of them, I might have waited till they were 9. Might have kept them in baseball from age 5 through 9, and then started the football. So the moment they got those pads on, baseball took a backseat. So I maybe would have waited, or maybe I would have had them do flag for those first few years if I could go back and do it. So don't worry about them starting at this later stage. I've already talked about learn how the offense works. I'm going to say this part. It's important that your child be smart as a football player. Not a smart football player, be smart as a football player. Yes, they're going to need to be smart football players, but just have some general intelligence. And some of the ways that you can develop that, of course, is obviously make school important. And I do need to tell parents this because football can get crazy. All right. These youth kids are playing 17, 18, 19, 20 games a year. And so that means they're training. They're not playing these games. They're training for these games in February, March, and April. And it's just a round the clock schedule. And then they're going to trainers and all that. I cannot tell you enough that you need to stress the importance of their education. Sounds like, just this generic talk, but it is important that you have a smart player, that they have some general intelligence, because eventually they're going to run into a situation where if they can't think, they can't learn, they're going to have a problem on the field. I don't care how fast they are. One of the good things you could do at these early stages, have them, learn another language or play an instrument. Those things really develop their cognitive abilities. It puts them on a different wavelength than the normal football player and the other football players. All right. If you want to separate them, it's not always about having them drag a sled through the field. It's about having them be super intelligent. And when they learn a language or they learn how to play an instrument, it stimulates different parts of their brain that make them more intelligent than the next guy as they move along and things unfold. The best players that I have had, I'm going to say this clearly, the best players that I have had were the smartest players that I had. Smart players. Not some kid that was just stronger and faster than everyone. Those guys flame out because if they don't know where to be, things get more and more intricate and they get more, for lack of a better term, complicated for players as they move through the ranks. High school football gets more complicated than youth football. College football, more complicated than high school. And NFL, more complicated than all of it. The playbooks are thick. They don't have an ability to think, learn. It's going to be a problem for them. It's going to be a problem for them. So, like I said, experiences told me learning another language, playing an instrument stimulates parts of their mind and makes learning easy for them. So definitely something for you to do. Last part, not the last, second to last part. I mentioned this already. Play other sports. There's so many skills that come from other sports that are applicable to football that it is important that these guys get well-rounded. Go play basketball. Okay, for DBs, that's great. You play defense on a basketball court. You bring those skills to playing defensive back. Seen it work. Go play baseball. Teaches you patience, how to judge fly balls, and how to have, great hand-eye coordination. I could go through all the sports. Wrestling, really, really great. All of the best tacklers on the teams that I played and coached for were wrestlers, plus just such an individual confidence that wrestling brings and, the toughness that it brings. Wrestling is great, but all of these sports bring another aspect to it. And of course, track. Okay. All you do as a defensive back is run. Whether you're playing in your position or you're playing special teams, all you do is run. So why not get really good at it? All right. I opened up this entire Indy Drills podcast talking about that. But run track. Okay. It puts you in shape and makes you fast. And these are two things that you're really, really going to need at this position. So if there's no other sport that you're really good at, run track. Track was the only sport that I forced my kids to do. My wife and I forced our 3 kids to do it. Okay. I have a daughter and I have 2 sons. It's the only sport we forced them to do. Anything else, you kind of had a choice. But that track helped them in all of the other sports. So definitely run track. The final thing is have a social life. from ages 10 to 12. It's kind of the last stages where everything is not overly regimented, because once you get to high school and it starts getting serious, and now with NIL, with the money being right there around the corner, high school starts becoming seriously serious, more serious than it was before, at a faster pace. And so 10 through 12 is, the last time they could really have build any kind of a social life that they will take. Because I've seen guys be all business, have no social life, to the point where they don't even know how to ride a bike, and they don't really have any real friends. And if they don't have a social life, it's going to upend them in the end. They're going to be in a locker room with guys. Okay. They're going to be in a locker room with other guys. If they don't have a social life, don't know how to get along with teammates, all of this will get upended. There's the horror stories out there of the helicopter dads that didn't let their kids do anything. All right. Some that didn't even let them eat fast food. Guess what happened when they became adults? They ate all the damn fast food that they could find. Or they're awkward and they don't know how to deal with teammates. That's the other thing about playing other sports, is they get exposed to different types of people. Because at the end of the day, football is the ultimate team sport. And if you don't know how to be a teammate and relate with people, you're going to have a problem in this game, and you're going to flame out. And for all of the hard work you did on all these other things, you flamed out because you just couldn't get along with a guy, and you don't want to have that happen. So reviewing this again, take an interest in the game, especially on how offense works. You could start playing at this age. It's not the worst thing in the world. If you hadn't been playing up to this point, you could start playing. You got guys that have started playing in high school that ended up making it pretty far. All right. If you got talent, you got talent. The next thing is play an instrument, learn a language, make school important. I know school has been lost in all of this because guys get NIL money and everything else. And it's not even about the education anymore when they're going to college. Don't fall into that trap. Still make education important, because your player, even in the game of football, is going to have to be intelligent, and they're going to have to be able to think, and they're going to have to be able to think fast and make decisions. Okay. You still need to be a smart person when you play football. Believe it or not, the outside world thinks we're meatheads. We're not. The smarter you are, the better player you are. And you're just going to have to trust me on that. Play other sports, specifically track or wrestling. But if you're talented in some other sport, or you are 10 or 12 years old, you're showing some ability in another sport, baseball, basketball, look, nurture that. Maybe your kid is a baseball player. Maybe he's a basketball player. You might find that out. If not, they bring those skills to the football field, and they really translate well to defensive back. Nothing wrong with that. If you go look up the resume or the biographies of a lot of your top defensive backs, if you go look it up, you're going to see that they were probably excellent in one or two other sports. It's just kind of how it is. Because at the end of the day, these college coaches want athletes. It's great that your son did DB work 24 hours and he can really backpedal well, and he's a great DB. But if he's not an athlete, it's gonna get tough for them when it comes to recruiting time. All right, so make them an athlete. Final thing is have a social life. They got to be able to relate to other people. They got to have some fun doing this, or they're going to flame out. All right, that's going to be it for me, man. We went a while here on this edition of the Indy Drills podcast. I hope you guys got some really great information out of this show, and it's something that you can use and apply. Really appreciate that. You know what I really do appreciate? First of all, is comments. I love to get comments. That helps build the show, but it also helps build our community here and give me some ideas on some other things that I need to cover down the road. I also love it when you guys share this, like this, but most of all, I love when you guys subscribe to the channel. So I really would appreciate you guys doing that. Now, you know what you're going to appreciate is if you pick up a copy of this great book right here, 101 DB Tips. The link is in the description down below, but everything that you would want to know about playing defensive back, whether that's playing man or zone, playing nickel, safety, corner, it's all in this book. Your footwork, what to do with your eyes, how to play press, how to train in the off season, how to study film, all right here in this book. All right. And again, 101dbtips.com, or hit the link in the description down below if you're watching this on YouTube. The other thing is the All Eyes DB Camp members area. We are creating top of the line coaches and players in there each and every week. And I love how the community is growing. Great information in there. I go over coverages. There are quizzes in there. I talk about strategy. I break down some one-on-one film. We break down technique and, daily DB tips, all that great stuff in there. You can find it at members.alleyedsdbcamp.com, or hit the link down in the description below. Don't forget about Acorns and joining the All Eyes DB Camp mailing list. Have that in the description down below. All right, that's it for me. Getting a little gassed right here. Gonna head on out. Appreciate you guys joining me, and until next time, All Eyes DB Camp. Consistency breeds results.